Hi, my name is Keely Hawkins. I am the Nutrition Program Specialist for RCCIs and charter schools. In this training, we will discuss how to implement offer versus serve at lunch and breakfast. There is a resource you will be able to use when we get into a game called Jeopardy! Meal or No Meal. At that point, you'll be able to use this resource to determine whether mock meal selections can count as a reimbursable meal or not. Let's get started. Offer versus serve is required at the high school level at lunch only and is optional for all other grade groups. Schools must still offer all 5 required food components in those full required amounts, depending on which age group you are serving. The difference with offer versus serve is that students are able to decline 1 or 2 components. They must, though, still take at least 1/2 cup of fruits and or vegetables. The same meal price must be charged if a student declines any of the components. Food components versus food items. There are 5 food groups that make up the reimbursable meal. Our food components, as we know, are meats, meat alternatives, grains, fruits, vegetables, and milk. A food item is composed of 2 or more of our food components, such as a chicken patty sandwich would be a combination of grains and meats, and a burrito might have meat alternate, vegetables, and grains. Here's an example of a pizza. It's considered one food item, but how many food components might it consist of? It would have grains, meats, and vegetables. This, we could call it a turkey sandwich or a turkey sub. It's considered one food item, but it might have 3 total components in it. The lettuce, maybe some pickles and onions and tomatoes on the sub sandwich might be comprised of a full vegetable component, your meat on the turkey sandwich, and then your grain consisting of the bread. Here we have a chicken patty sandwich, considered one food item, but within it might consist of 2 full components, the grains being the bun and the meat alternate being the chicken patty itself. The breading might also contribute to the grains. Schools must offer all 5 components in the minimum daily serving size. So if you are at the elementary level, you must ensure that you are offering 1/2 cup of fruit, 1 full ounce of grains, 1 full ounce of meats, 1 full cup in at least 2 varieties of milk, and a 3/4 cup of vegetables. At middle school and high school, those are going to change a little bit, depending. Students must select at least 1/2 cup of fruit and vegetables and a minimum portion of at least 2 other food components. And we'll get into some examples for better understanding. When implementing offer versus serve, we want to ensure that the students are understanding what they are able to select. For example, you might want to let the kids know that they can take up to 2 fruits and vegetables if you've planned your meals that way. On the right-hand side, you see unlimited fruits and vegetables. You might offer or put this sign to demonstrate a long weekend coming up and you want to allow students to take an unlimited amount so that it doesn't get wasted over a long weekend. Another option is bottom left in the green selecting 1 or 2 fruits or vegetables to complete your meal. And the one in the blue, 1 fruit or vegetable with every meal. That is to ensure that every student is taking or putting a fruit or a vegetable on their plate. Here's an example of all of our vegetable subgroups and their required quantities over a period of a week. You have your dark green, your red orange, your beans and peas, your starchy, and then other vegetables that do not fit into those other categories. Some common misconceptions I like to point out. Under dark green, you do not see uh, regular lettuce. I like to use the example that students who are into sports and extracurriculars in the morning, they might have practice, and by the time lunch rolls around, they are very hungry. This would be a great opportunity that if more than the 2-ounce minimum requirement is offered, as long as the menu planner has planned accordingly, the student could select more than that minimum requirement, and you are able to serve them that. And this would count towards their grains component reimbursement. Identifying the reimbursable meals, it is a requirement during your administrative review that we ensure you demonstrate what consists of a reimbursable meal near or at the beginning of the serving line. This way students know what to select. It also helps speed up the process through the menu serving line as well. Here's an example of a sample lunch menu for grades K through 5 and 6 through 8. This helps students to read and understand what they're able to select before going through the service line. Notice fruits and vegetables are combined to allow students the opportunity to take 1 or 2 or at least 1 serving, that half-cup serving of fruits or vegetables, and then telling students to take an entree as well as a milk. But under offer versus serve, there is no specific component requirement except for that half-cup serving of fruit or vegetable. An example for 9 through 12 here, you see that the change in verbiage goes from choosing 1 or 2 to choosing up to 2 half-cup servings, and that is indicating that their minimum requirement is that full cup serving of vegetable and fruit. So choosing up to 2 will give them that full cup of each component. And again, if you have planned this way that you would like them to be required to take an entree and required to take a milk, that is okay, but that is not a requirement under offer versus serve. Only half-cup serving of fruit and vegetable along with 2 other components. Identifying reimbursable meals, again, at the POS, this is the most important part of claiming those reimbursable meals. The person at the POS system must be properly trained in order to identify if what the student has selected counts as a reimbursable meal. Here's where we will use our resource, the planned meals, to identify whether the student selection that we've come up with counts as a reimbursable meal or not. To start with, we will start with elementary school, K through 5. The planned meal, we see they are being served a 1-ounce turkey sandwich with 1-ounce cheese, so that will be a 2-ounce equivalent. The whole wheat bread, 2 slices equals a 2-ounce equivalent grain. The lettuce and tomato are equaling a 1/4 cup. The carrot sticks are a 1/2 cup, and that you see the minimum requirement at the elementary level is a 3/4 cup vegetable. So you add the 1/2 cup and the 1/4 cup. They are serving that 3/4 cup minimum requirement. The red apple, the minimum requirement at the elementary level is 1/2 cup, and they are serving that. And then the milk choice, they have a variety in a 1 cup serving size. So if the student were to select this as their reimbursable meal, could we claim this as for reimbursement? The answer is yes. the student is taking 3 full components. The bread as the grain, the turkey counts towards the meat, and the fruit at half cup. Another example, the carrots, the apple, and the milk. Could we count this for reimbursement? The answer is yes. They have 2 full requirement components at the required minimum, half cup serving of the apple and a full cup serving of the milk, and that is why they are allowed to take the half cup serving of vegetable. This one is unfortunately not reimbursable because the vegetable component on the sandwich only equals a quarter cup, so they are missing another quarter cup of vegetable to meet that minimum half cup vegetable requirement. Now we'll switch to middle school. Their plain meal is whole grain pasta, half a cup, equaling the 1 ounce equivalent grain, with a meat sauce, 1½ ounces, and a quarter cup tomato sauce. So therefore we have a 1½ ounce equivalent meat alternate and a quarter cup vegetable in the sauce. The whole grain roll equals 1 ounce. The romaine salad, they're serving 1½ cups, and therefore it credits for half of that, which equals 3/4 cup. And their fresh fruit is half a cup, and their milk choice is 1 cup. So if the student selects the pasta with the meat sauce and the milk, we cannot claim that for reimbursement because they are only getting a quarter cup of vegetable in the tomato sauce. Here, we can count this for reimbursement because they are getting 3 full components. The whole grain pasta counts towards the grains, the salad counts towards the vegetable requirement, and the pasta sauce counts towards the meat alternate. This one would not be reimbursable because they are missing that half cup of fruit or vegetable. The tomato sauce only credits a quarter cup and is not reaching the minimum requirement. If the student selects the roll with the fruit and the milk, this is reimbursable because they have 3 full components at the middle school level. The high school 9 through 12. The plain menu is a piece of pizza. This is a great example of one food item consisting of 2 components. Here they're being offered broccoli and corn equaling that full cup, cantaloupe and red grapes equaling that full cup minimum, and their milk choice. If they select the pizza and the milk, it is not reimbursable because they are missing that half cup of fruit or vegetable. Here they added in the broccoli, and therefore they can claim this meal for reimbursement. Here, the student takes the fruit with the pizza, and it is reimbursable because the fruit is at the minimum half cup serving with the 2 other full components. The crust being the grain, 2 ounce, and the cheese on the pizza being 2 ounce equivalent meat alternate. Here, the corn at the half cup serving counts towards that 2 components plus half cup minimum of vegetable, so we can claim this for reimbursement. Here, this is not reimbursable because they only have 1 full component, which would be the half cup of cantaloupe and the half cup of grapes. That equals 1 full cup, but only comes from 1 component. The half cup of vegetable is only that minimum half cup serving, so they would need 1 full component from another category. Here we are still missing that half cup serving of vegetable or 1 other full component. Here they're only getting 2 full components with the fruit and the milk. Here it is again not reimbursable because they are only getting half a cup of fruit, half a cup of vegetable, and 1 cup of milk. Because we are at the high school level, they would need to either take 1 full cup of the corn or 1 full cup of the grapes in order for this to be reimbursable. Another example at the high school level, we have fruit yogurt and the cheese stick equaling 2 ounces together of the meat alternate. The whole grain crackers are a 2-ounce equivalent grain. The spinach salad is served as 2 cups, which equals a 1 cup serving of vegetable. The blueberries are half a cup, the orange wedges are half a cup, and they have their milk variety. This particular example is reimbursable because they have 3 full components, the meat alternate grains, and milk, with that half cup serving of fruit. Here, this is not reimbursable since the minimum requirement of meat alternate at the high school level is 2 ounces and the yogurt is only 1 ounce. The grains is 2 ounces, but they would need that other full ounce of meat alternate in order to be claimable for reimbursement. Here we have a non-reimbursable meal since the yogurt is 2 ounce equivalents, that is 1 full component, and the blueberries and oranges together equal another component, that is only 2 full components. They would either need to take 1 additional component or a half cup serving of vegetable. Here we have a reimbursable meal since they have the 2-ounce grain equivalent and the 1 cup of milk. Those are 2 full components, and then they selected a half cup of fruit. Here is a reimbursable meal again. Full cup of salad is that full minimum component requirement of vegetable, the half cup of blueberries, and then the full component of the milk. Here we have a non-reimbursable meal since it is only 2 full components, the vegetable and the fruit. They would need 1 additional component to make this a reimbursable meal. This is also non-reimbursable since we are at the high school level and the minimum requirement for meat alternate is 2 ounces. They have only selected a 1 ounce yogurt, so this is not at our full serving requirement. The blueberries at half a cup is okay, but this whole selection would not be reimbursable since there is only 1 full component being taken, which is the milk. Here's an example of a reimbursable meal since they took 2 ounce equivalent grain, 1 cup of vegetable, they took a half cup of the blueberries, and a 1 ounce of the meat. Based on your menu planning, this would be completely okay to only take the 1 ounce meat alternate option since they have 2 of the full other components. This would be an activity you will see as an attachment that you could implement as an in-service learning opportunity, in-service training with the staff at your school. You will find this attachment with instructions under this module. Now we'll jump into offer versus serve at breakfast. Offer versus serve at breakfast is optional at all grade levels. It is not a requirement at the high school level. Meals must include at least 4 items. Notice at lunch, it is 5 components. At breakfast, we have 3 required food components: milk, fruits, and grains. Students must select at least 3 food items, including that half cup of fruit, or a vegetable substitution. And same as lunch, the same meal price must be charged no matter how much a student or how little a student takes for a reimbursable meal. Students must select at least the daily minimum requirement by the meal pattern according to the age group being served to count as a food item for offer versus serve. And again, just like at lunch, the fruits component is an exception. That half cup serving is okay. Components versus items at breakfast is just a little different as we combine the grains with meat alternates, and vegetables get combined with the fruits, and milk stays as its own. A food item is going to be a combination of two or more of the food components to make up a food item. An example of this at breakfast would be a breakfast burrito or a fruit parfait. Components versus items at breakfast. Here we have a whole grain 2-ounce bagel. It is considered one food component as the grains. At how many food items would it be? It would be 2 food items, 2 grains, since the minimum requirement is 1 ounce. Here we have a variety of fruit options, each at a half-cup serving. We have one food component, the fruits, but it is actually considered 4 food items. And this again would be depending on how you menu and show the students what they can take for a reimbursable meal at breakfast. A school-made smoothie with 1 cup of milk and a half cup of fruit would be 2 food components coming from the milk and the fruit. How many food items would this be? It would still stay at 2 food items, 1 milk and 1 fruit. Here we have half a cup of yogurt at the 1 ounce equivalent, half a cup of fruit, and a quarter cup of granola equaling 1 ounce equivalent grain. 2 food components, the grains and the fruit. It comes out to be 3 food items because of the 2 grains. The yogurt at breakfast falls under the grains component, and then we have 1 fruit. Menu planning decisions at breakfast are just as important at lunchtime. Menu planning for offer versus serve at breakfast. On the left side, you will see how meals are served without implementing offer versus serve. Students must take a minimum of 3 food items, 1 milk, 1 fruit or a vegetable substitution, and 1 grain. Students are not allowed to decline any food items. When offer versus serve is implemented, students have 4 options, that 4th option being an additional item from the fruits or grains, and these would include a vegetable substitution or a meat alternate substitution. Out of those 4 options, students must take at least 3 food items, including a half cup of fruit or fruit juice or a vegetable substitution. Here are some example menus for menu planning when implementing offer versus serve. The menu planner could choose to offer 2 grains. One could be a meat alternate, such as eggs or turkey sausage, a fruit, and a milk. On the right side, you might only offer 1 grain, 2 fruits, such as a whole fruit, canned fruit, frozen fruit, and then your second fruit might be a fruit juice. The menu offerings determine what students can select for a reimbursable breakfast under offer versus serve. The menu planner determines how to offer food items. Just like at lunch, it's important to be consistent and to communicate with the staff and students. This will help the flow at breakfast time, as well as understanding how reimbursement works. Schools must identify content of a reimbursable meal near or at the beginning of the serving lines. This way students know what to select. Just like at lunchtime, there needs to be a sign demonstrating or indicating what constitutes a reimbursable meal for the students. Meeting those juice limits with offer versus serve. No more than half of the weekly 1 cup fruit offerings can come from juice. Best practices for fruits with offer versus serve is to offer all fruits and vegetable substitutions in half-cup servings. This will help with waste reduction as well. Here's some sample language for assorted fruit and juice choices under offer versus serve. On the left, you see the menu planner decided that students can choose 2 fruits or 1 fruit and 1 juice, and it offers or indicates what is being served, all being in half-cup serving sizes. On the right-hand side, you will see another way to indicate that students can only take 1 juice, saying choose up to 2 fruits, and then in parentheses it says no more than 1 juice, letting the students know that if they choose a juice, they may only choose 1 juice and no more than 1 juice. And again, showing that all fruits are in half-cup serving sizes. Identifying a reimbursable breakfast. Breakfast includes grains, fruits, and your milk. You might tell or indicate with your menu planning that students can choose up to 2, and here is a variety of what they can choose from. Fruits, choosing 2 fruits or 1 fruit and 1 fruit juice, and then choosing their milk. This is simply an example of how you might demonstrate to the students what they can take at breakfast under offer versus serve. Remember, you do not have to offer so many options. It's all up to your menu planning, your budget, and what you choose to do, as long as you are offering the minimum requirements in each food component. Some best practices for signage at breakfast time: selecting 1 milk, letting students know to take 1 or 2 fruits, and ensuring they know that a complete meal includes at least 1 fruit, and then indicating to take 1 or 2 grains is a great way to let students know what they're able to take at breakfast time. Now we're going to play that same game, deciding whether a given meal is reimbursable or not at breakfast time. Here's our plain breakfast: a bagel, which we are indicating equals 2 grains, 1 fruit, and for the orange, and 1 banana as another fruit, and then their milk choice. Here we have a bagel and an orange. That half-cup serving of fruit is there, so therefore it is a reimbursable meal because they have taken those 3 food items as required. Here we have a bagel and a milk. Unfortunately, this is not reimbursable because we do not see that half cup of fruit or vegetable being taken. Here they have added a banana, so therefore we can count that as a reimbursable meal. Notice they took more than the minimum requirement of the 3 food items, and that is okay too. We can still count that for reimbursement. Here we have a milk and an orange. Unfortunately, this is not reimbursable because it only has 2 food items. The minimum requirement at breakfast time would be 3. Here the student has taken 2 fruit options and a milk, so this can be counted as a reimbursable meal. Another example, a student takes a whole grain waffle. Notice some grains, it is a 2.4 ounce serving, but it only is equivalent to a 2 ounce grain equivalent. Ensure that when you are ordering your grains at breakfast time, it is very common that some grains like muffins, bagels, if there are any added fruits in there, maybe other ingredients that could cause it to come down in their ounce equivalent of grains, you would want to ask for their production formulation statement or their CN label to ensure that what you are ordering meets the minimum daily requirements, so that if you think you are serving 2 ounces, it might actually only be 1.75. So ensure that when you are ordering, that distributor can provide what those grains that you're ordering meets the minimum daily requirement. Here we have their fruit options as a fruit juice and whole fruit grapes, and then they have their milk choices. Here the student takes a juice and their waffles, so we can claim this as a reimbursable meal. Here there is no fruit being taken, so we cannot claim this for reimbursement. Even though it contains 3 food items, it's missing that one requirement, which is a half cup serving of fruit or vegetable. This would be a reimbursable meal since it contains 3 food items, 2 fruits, and a milk. Another example of a breakfast menu, a strawberry smoothie has a fruit and a grain in it. The yogurt is a meat alternate substitution. Notice that they still offered an actual grain. This is a requirement under offer versus serve at breakfast time. If you are going to offer any meat alternate, a grain must also be offered. This does not mean the student must take the grain, but the grain must still be offered for the student. Then the student has the option of taking a half cup of orange wedges, and they have a 1 cup milk choice. If the student takes the smoothie and the muffin, they can count this as a reimbursable meal since they are taking 3 food items, 2 grains, including the meat alternate substitution, and 1 fruit. Here we can also claim this as a reimbursable meal. It contains 3 food items. This is not a reimbursable meal since it only contains 2 food items. This we can claim for reimbursement since there are 3 food items in here. Notice the corn muffin is offered, but it is not selected, and that is okay under offer versus serve. Another example of a planned breakfast, we have a 2-ounce blueberry muffin. Notice another example, this is only a 1-ounce equivalent grain. In their formulation, they have indicated that even though it is 2 ounces worth of a muffin, there are other ingredients in there, such as the blueberries. Maybe they have dairy products in there that bring down the ounce equivalent of the grain to 1 ounce. The whole grain cereal flakes, those count as a 1 grain, 1 cup. Notice there in that photo we see that there are raisins in there, but there is no indicator that the raisins are going to count towards any fruit component. So that is why they also offer kiwi slices in the 1 cup serving, and they have their milk choice. Here we can count this as a reimbursable meal since they take 3 food items. This would not be reimbursable since they are missing that half cup of fruit or vegetable. This is also not reimbursable since they are still missing that half cup of fruit. Again, this is not reimbursable. The product formulation statement on this grain for the blueberry muffin does not indicate that the blueberries inside the muffin count as any sort of fruit component. Another example of a planned breakfast menu with a blueberry yogurt, this is our meat alternate substitution, 1 ounce equivalent. Also being served is an actual grain, the granola cereal. A 1/4 cup of granola equals 1 grain. Strawberries at 1 cup and a milk choice. The student selects the granola, strawberries, and milk. This is a reimbursable meal since they are taking the minimum 3 food items. Here we have a reimbursable meal again. They have the half cup of fruit in there, more than half cup of fruit since they are offering their strawberries in full cup components. Here we have the student selecting the yogurt, the granola, and the strawberries. We can count this as a reimbursable meal since it contains the 3 food items. This would not be reimbursable since they are missing the half cup of fruit. Another example of a planned breakfast, we have oatmeal. Half cup serving of oatmeal is a 1 ounce equivalent grain. The blueberry muffin, again note, it is a 4-ounce muffin, but it is only 2-ounce equivalent. The cantaloupe, they're offering 1 cup, counting as 2 fruits, and their milk choice is available. So they are offering 6 total food items at breakfast. Here we do have a reimbursable meal. They took that full cup of fruit, so they're counting that as 2 fruits, and they're taking 3 greens. This would also be reimbursable since they are taking 4 food items, the 2 food items in the grain and the 2 food items in their fruit. Here we have another reimbursable meal. They're taking 1 grain and 2 fruits. Here is a more complex planned breakfast. They have the whole grain bread counting as 2 grains. They're offering scrambled eggs counting as 2 grains. 1 egg equals a 2-ounce equivalent. The tomato salsa is your vegetable substitution counting as 1 fruit. They're also offering fresh fruit and they have their milk choice. So they're offering a total of 7 food items. Here we have a reimbursable meal including 4 food items with the 1 fruit, 1 milk, and 2 grains as our meat alternate substitution. Notice they did not actually take a physical grain, but it was offered at breakfast. Here we can count this since they're taking the vegetable salsa. That counts as the 1 fruit component, that half cup serving. Here we have another example where they take the meat, the grain, and the milk. However, they are missing their half cup serving of fruit, so we could not count this towards reimbursement. Here we can count as a reimbursable meal. This is also a reimbursable meal. They're taking 4 food items, the 2 grains in the bread, the fruit, and the milk. This would also be reimbursable since this 1 slice of bread contains 2 grains and their fruit counts as 1 food item. This would not be reimbursable since they do not have that half cup of serving of fruit with them. This would be another activity that you would be able to use as an in-service with your staff to be able to practice implementing offer versus serve and creating your own reimbursable meals at breakfast. Thank you for watching this webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to reach me at keely.hawkins@desi.mo.gov, or you can reach me at 573-751-3866.